Climate change is one of the key concerns for humanity in the 21st century. There are many ecological threats which the world is facing currently, and these are going to be turbocharged by climate change. But in all the publicity around climate change, we quite often lose sight of just how severe these ecological threats are. The Institute for Economics and Peace produced a report titled the Ecological Threat Report, which it does each year. And what we found in that there's an incredibly strong connection between ecological degradation today and conflict. So, for example, if we looked at the 15 countries with the worst ecological degradation, what we find is 11 of them are currently conflict zones. Further, the other 4 of the 15 are currently on our watch list in terms of countries which could substantially fall in peace. Now, just to really drive it home even further, if we look at it, the country with the worst ecological score on the planet is Afghanistan. And we all know the history of Afghanistan. So you've got this vicious cycle working together with ecological degradation and conflict as people fight over scarcer and scarcer resources. So if we looked at it today, there are 47 countries containing 3.3 billion people which face very high levels of threats from ecological degradation. Now, what's important, many of these countries actually have the resilience to be able to cope with it. So to really understand where the threats really lie, we need to look at these 47 countries, then measure their level of societal resilience, which at the Institute for Economics and Peace we do through using positive peace. Now that brings us down to 30 hotspot countries. Now these 30 hotspot countries contain 1.3 billion people, and that's a large number of people. And they're the people who are at risk today of falling further into conflict, or the countries starting into conflict because of their ecological degradation. And so these countries fall into 3 different bands. The first one is in sub-Saharan Africa, running from Mauritania over to Somalia. The second is the Southern African band, and that runs from Angola through to Madagascar, and finally in the Middle East to South Asia, which runs from Syria through to Pakistan. Now, what was really striking when we looked at this is the countries with the highest level of positive peace, which was the measure we use for resilience, face almost no ecological threats. And that's because what we could see is the ecological threats, or the ecological degradation, comes about through a whole series of systemic factors which cause the countries to end up in these really fragile situations. So when we think about it, the countries with very high levels of positive peace, they generally have fairly well-functioning governments, which mean they're able to capture the water which the population needs, which means they can produce the food they need. It also means that if they, let's say countries like Singapore, where they can't produce enough food, they've got the export industries to be able to bring it in. Now, if we look at this further, and this is truly, for me anyway, it's a disturbing fact. 30% of the people in the world today are food insecure. That's literally 2.4 billion people. Africa is the area of the world which suffers from the worst food insecurity, and it's estimated that 2/3 of the population of Africa are food insecure. Furthermore, when we come down and we look at these ecological degradation, it's estimated that the population of Africa will increase by 90% between now and 2050. Now, when we look at that and dig further, 11 countries are going to more than double their population in the next 30 years, with Niger expected to increase its population by 161%. One of the other factors which we find disturbing is that the cost of food has increased by 44% since 2014. Now, the demand for food is also expected to increase by 50% between now and in 2050. And this is mainly driven by future demand of food up in Southeast Asia as the economies of Southeast Asia and China start to rise and you end up with more middle class. Also, one of the other factors which came out of this was that the level of malnutrition with males in many of the poorest places in the world is twice that of females. And I guess one of the things which needs further research, what is the effect of hunger in terms of driving people to join militias to try and seek just simply having enough food so that they can exist? So if we bring all these factors together, what we can find is that there's some countries which are not going to suffer from ecological degradation. And these are the richer nations, the ones with the higher positive peace, because they're wealthy, they've got governments which can adjust the resources they've got, and they've got low population growth. At the other end, we have a number of countries which are highly fragile, with large population growth, not enough food, not enough water to create more food. Therefore, what we'd say, and we call on the world to really focus on the ecological threats and degradation which exist today to avoid future conflict.